you get to that point, just write things down. I can't stress that enough. Write it down. It sounds corny, cliche, but just do it. When you see it there, you're like, okay, now that I see it, I've absorbed it. Perspective is there. And then just go to the next thing. Go to the next thing. Go to the next thing. And that's probably my biggest piece of advice that's helped me personally. It's more anecdotal, but that's kind of what's helped me the most for sure.
Welcome to Keeping Tabs. I'm Tabitha Croc, and every Monday, I talk to someone here in North Idaho with the goal to connect more people in the Coeur d'Alene area. And then every Friday, I talk to someone outside the community to bring in a new perspective and to learn a little bit about yourself. Good morning. I have Ryan Collingwood with me today. Longtime friend. I've known him since the good old days from Post Falls Christian and from Kootenai Kids. So known each other for a very long time. Been able to keep a friendship. You know, he is a journalist, a writer. He's been working with multiple different avenues, sports, things like that. I think even when I was living in Lewiston, you were living in Lewiston for a while. Tons of background in writing, journalism. He's a fantastic. So first of all, Ryan, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Tab. It's always good to see some local people out there doing cool things like podcasts and kind of getting involved in the community. It's always good.
Yeah, and I forgot to mention, he has now a podcast. You have to go check it out. He interviews a lot of really cool sports people, especially right now. He just finished doing the Big Sky tournament, Eastern Washington. I saw that you interviewed some guys from there as well. So first of all, tell me a little bit about who you are and kind of what you're doing right now.
Yeah, obviously I'm a local guy. I was born in St. Mary's, Idaho, and grew up in Spokane, Post Falls area mostly. Then, you know, kind of bounced around a couple colleges, played sports in high school. It was okay. Like, wasn't great, wasn't terrible. Rode the bench in college for a couple of years. I was always kind of a nerd, comic book nerd, video game nerd. I think my dream as a kid was to write for Saturday Night Live, be a sketch comedy writer, but I don't think I didn't really have the guidance to go to New York and get a job as a waiter and try to hope I get on with one of my sketches somehow. But I fell into, you know, kind of local newspapers, and it's been kind of a fun ride. I bounced around a few of them, and then I ended back home in 2016. I want to say I came back to the Coeur d'Alene area after being, like you mentioned, I was in the Lewiston Tribune. I was in East Idaho. I was in Texas for a year. I mean, I kind of bounced around for a bit, but the goal was to always come back home. I never had these dreams of working for the Los Angeles Times or anything like that. Because I think what makes, you know, we don't get paid a lot. You know, it's kind of like, you know, teachers teach because they love the kids, and I think we do it because we just like telling a good story. So we're not in it for the money. So this would be the kind of area where I could actually live an okay life on what I make and stuff. So, but I'm glad to be back here and talking with you, of course.
Awesome. And you're about to head off to the NCAA national, or to the championship tournament. You said tomorrow. That's
right. We're heading to Indianapolis. We're going to have our work cut out for us because we're covering both Gonzaga and Eastern. A good year for our teams. You know, obviously Gonzaga's had their amazing run, and Eastern's been a good smaller college. And then we got a couple of women's teams to go to, but they're playing in San Antonio. I think Gonzaga women and Washington State women are the tournaments. So a lot's going on at the Spokesman Review, but it's better than twiddling your thumbs like we were doing about a year ago now.
Yeah, exactly. And that's super exciting. I'm pumped for you. Because this is my favorite time of the year. I look forward to this. So last year when this was canceled, it was like devastating, especially as well as Gonzaga was doing. You were kind of like, this is the year. This is the year. This is going to be the year that, but yeah, so I'm excited for you. I'm excited to follow along and see all the stuff that you guys are doing.
Yeah, it should be fun.
So when you got into writing journalism, is there a point in your, you know, childhood or in high school, is there a point you're like, I'm going to be a writer?
That's funny you bring that up, because I tell people the story when I remember to. Okay. So I'm in fourth grade, and we had this assignment where you had to reach out to people you want to be like, or be aspired to be. And I think they wanted us to like talk to a cop or a fireman or a teacher or a coach or a business owner, something just simple. And I was like, oh, I see those are great pursuits. But, you know, as a fourth grader, I'm like, I think I'm going to make this a little harder on myself. And I think I was in, fuck, can I cuss? Or
yeah, you're fine.
I wasn't sure. You know me, Tab. I'll drop some F-bombs every now and again. So,
Real.
I was playing Mortal Kombat a lot. Like I played in tournaments and stuff pretty bad. And, so I subscribed to this video game magazine, and it listed a gym in Chicago where the guys who are the Mortal Kombat characters, like the guys who kick and punch and like they're the character actors of the video game. This is like this is like 94. Like, so and I'm like, dude, I'm gonna get a hold of those guys. And they're like, how? I'm like, I'm just gonna call that gym. And I'm like 10. So I knew it'd be a long distance bill if I used my parents' phone. So I went to my neighbors just thinking like he'd never find the bill. Like they'd never suspect me of racking up some long distance bill. So I called directory assistants and I called the gym and I'm like, hey, is this guy, I forget the guys' names. And like, is he here? Is he working out? And they're like, no, but this guy is. And I'm like, oh, cool. Can I talk to him? And then they page him. They like, when you're a little kid and you're lost, your mom's like, you need to come to aisle 7. Your mom's waiting for you. Well, I did that for this like beefcake dude at some Chicago gym. And he picked up the phone and he's like, hello. And I'm like, oh, hey, I'm some 10-year-old from Spokane. And I just wanted, what's your favorite like Mortal Kombat move or something? It was so weird. And then I went back and I filed the report or whatever. I'm not sure if I like wrote my quotes in a crayon or whatever the hell I was doing. And I gave it back to my teacher and she was like, wait, you got a hold of these guys? And I was like, yeah, like how? And I was like, oh, I just did this. And she's like, you should be like a reporter. And I was like, didn't even cross my mind. And I think she had to have thought I was full of shit too. So looking back at that, but that's what kind of got it going a little bit. And then, I just in high school I was like one of the editors of a little school paper, and I wasn't sure if it's something I really wanted to do because like my personality, it's a little different than most newspaper journalists. I'm kind of out there a little bit, and it's a little different, but so I kind of waited till like my early 20s to actually do it. I didn't even major in journalism. The colleges I went to were so small they didn't even have journalism schools, so it's not like I could have pursued that. So I think I was 22 and I was kind of in a weird like stage in my life. I'm like, okay, I'm either going to go this way or this way. And websites, YouTube is starting up and MySpace and all this crap. And I'm like, you know what if like somebody had like a North Idaho, like ESPN.com, where I call some kid from Bonners Ferry and I write an article about him and put it on the internet, get a video on YouTube, and we'll make t-shirts and we'll make this little website. And basically I made it, I called all these athletic directors. I made these shirts. I made this website, made the logo, made a MySpace where I added every like local athlete basically, so that was kind of like my marketing and the way I got a hold of people. And it was called panhandlepreps.com. And then the writing kind of sucked. I was so green and the reporting was good, but the writing was raw. I didn't have an editor or anything. So it was just kind of like, it wasn't that great looking back. I'm like, oh, when I read some of the old articles, but people caught on to it because as you know, Tabitha, if you're some small school athlete and someone recognizes you, it could be anybody. It's like, if you're from Kootenai and you had like a 30-point game and someone's like, hey, that was awesome. Like, want to talk about it? They're like, oh, sure. I don't care who the hell you are. So you kind of have to build off that. So we did it. I did it to about every school up here and it caught on pretty quick. And then within the first few months, I was sharing content with idahosports.com. They were using my stuff. And then Creme 2 had a high school site and they would use my stuff too. So within the first year, Creme 2 and idahosports.com were using my content and stuff. And then the Spokesman Review had a blog where they would link to, because I wasn't competition to these guys. I was some like little nobody, so they would be nice and like, hey, Ryan wrote this. And they'd put a little, So the thing is, I wasn't really making much money though. It was cool. It was a good idea. It gave me experience, but I wasn't really making money. I made like maybe a few thousand tops in like 12 months. So I was kind of struggling there. And so I had to go work for a newspaper. So that was basically my journalism school. that year of that year of just kind of failing and seeing what I could do, and and started off at a newspaper in East Idaho, just middle of nowhere. And kind of from there, I kind of worked myself up, and now I'm here. So there's your long story to how I got to this point right here.
And I love it. I love when it's not, I went to journalism school. It's kind of fun to hear like someone's story. I like to like other people out there wanting to do something, thinking sometimes that they have to go to college and spend a lot of money, that sometimes it's just experience, and it's just getting out there and making those phone calls. It's doing it, it's failing. And that's the part. Is there something like in your life that you've gone through that you kind of had to learn a life lesson the hard way?
Oh, every week? No. I think that, that experience right there taught me, you kind of have to grind for everything. Nothing's going to be given to you. And fortunately, I had a childhood. I mean, looking back as a child, I was like, I wish my parents were rich. It'd have been cool. My parents had me when they were 15 years old. I mean, they're still married. They're like in their early 50s or whatever, I think. And I'm 37, so do the math on that. So, so seeing them kind of have to kind of scratch and claw for everything they had, and give me, my brother, a good childhood. Because but when it was all said and done, we lived on a golf course and went to a private school. But those first freaking 15 years were like tough, So seeing them kind of go through their struggles and be able to get to a point where they were doing successful, and then for me personally, just just going out there and sucking and having someone tell you suck a lot and being able to handle that. Because as a teenager, I was kind of a pain in the ass. I was in trouble a lot, not with the law or anything like that, but just in school, on my sports team, stuff like that. And being able to learn from those experiences and when I was failing, when I was putting myself out there, I had already experienced a ton of crap. So I was able to already channel already. Because if your life was amazing and at 23 it just gets hard, people like collapse. They don't know, so I was already conditioned, so I guess I can't really point to a particular instance where I was like, oh shit, I need to get it together. But I can say collectively a bunch of things kind of got me to this point.
Yeah. And I think that's using your past, and you're not using it as like poor me, but like, hey, I know how to deal with hard stuff.
Definitely.
And so with your career, is something that is a common myth about your career that you'd want people to know?
That we have like this internal bias, like I think, and that was kind of more when I was covering crime and politics. Like I did that because there was a point in my career a few years ago where I just got kind of bored with sports. I mean, obviously, I do sports now still because of the features. I mean, their games are cool and everything, but it's more about the people and their background and how they're part of the fabric of the community, and always the sub context, stuff like that. The games are kind of like, they're cool and everything, but that's not why I do it. Like if I never covered a game live again, I wouldn't cry about it, to be honest. But I think there's like this myth that like the journalists are out there to get the tear people down, and we're so biased, we're going to take you out. And the thing is, there are people like that, and there are certain media outlets that lean a certain way for some certain gains, either because they are staunch political in one direction, or as a means to survive, to get the clickbait, to get the advertising revenue, to do all these things. But I think there is a myth that journalists are out there like, you're so biased. Like the thing is that you're usually projecting your own feelings into what you're reading, and it has nothing to do with the journalist. It's like, let's say if kind of make it, you played sports and stuff. So let's say if Kootenai got beat by 100 points and it was on the front page, you'd be like, well, those guys obviously don't like us very much because it was on the front, for God's sake. No, that's just what happened, goddammit. You know what I mean? So, and people do that. Now imagine that times 1,000 with like a Division I school or whatever. So that, or in politics with a local politician, and obviously you've been involved with local politics and you know how they work. But the city council, like that guy doesn't like that guy because he dated that guy that girl in high school, and he's still bitter about it, and that's why they didn't vote for him. Like you kind of go through your own crap, and usually that's how we project writers and reporters is kind of more of a product of our own, inherent biases as well. So
Oh, and you hear that all the time, no matter, it's like, oh, the Coeur d'Alene press does this, the spokesman's press does this, and you're like, no, that's not necessarily how, you know what I mean? So it is, you hear all the time, you're like, oh, they only do this stuff, and they only report on this, and they really only showcase this, and you're like, well, I don't know if that's really true.
Yeah, the thing is, I mean, and to that point, I don't always agree with the things we even report, and my bosses will tell you this, because if I see something, I'm just like, what? I'll text them and be like, really, guys? Like, did this need to be a thing? And then they'll be like, oh, Ryan, blah, blah. And they'll tell me. And they know I do it from a good place. They know I do it from a place because I'm one of the few local people at our paper. We're a big paper in downtown Spokane, and most of everyone else is from somewhere else. So this affects my life because people like call me, what the hell? Like, my friend, the gas station guy, my aunt, uncle, cousin, friend is like, chewing my ass out like it was my goddamn idea. So it's like, it's different when it's my town and my paper.
Exactly. And this is where you're from, and this is where you plan to be for a very long time. That it's like, no, this is affecting my whole life. My grandma called me and yelled at me.
Yeah, and that's why I loved covering like it sucked covering the real serious heavy stuff, but it taught me a lot. And I kind of miss, doing those kind of stories. But dude, I'll tell you what, man, I got put in so many situations where I'd be writing about somebody I grew up with who committed a crime, or their parents owned this place that was doing something shady or something. And in a way it helped because it'd be like, I get all these tips, you go to the bar, hey, Ryan, I heard this is like, and it'd be completely true. I look into it and I'm like, no one knew that. And that would help. But on the flip side, it was like, well, I can't go to that barbecue anymore. You know what I mean? So it's one of those deals.
So, getting into this career and doing this kind of line of work, is there anybody that's been maybe influential, or maybe somebody you really look up to as you're doing this line of work?
Yeah, well, growing up, it's always the guys as a kid you remember reading. So I remember being a kid and reading like the Spokesman and the Coeur d'Alene Press, and I remember guys like Greg Lee at the Spokesman. He covered high school sports. And then there was Howie Stallwick at the Coeur d'Alene Press, and John Blanchette, who I still work with. I work with a lot of the guys. And we got some fossils at the Spokesman. We got some geriatric guys. Nah, I'm just kidding, guys, if you're listening to this. But anyway, guys been there forever, like since we were born, basically. We have that. And read those guys, and you kind of you read, you see how they write their writing style. You kind of like mimic it. I think when I was young, I tried too hard to be like other people, and it just didn't work. It was just like, oh, this kind of sucks. And so you do that enough, and you kind of develop your own style after a while. Like anybody will tell you, even coaches, broadcasters, or whoever, they'll just try to experiment and see what works, what doesn't work, and they'll kind of go outside themselves and they'll realize it sucks. And then you get enough reps, you kind of figure out what you are, what you can do, what you can't do. But yeah, I'd say, but those guys initially that I mentioned were the guys I probably clung on to and talked to as I was getting my career started. I'd be like, hey, like, what could I do? How do I start? Like, can you? And it's funny. So Howie Stallwick. So I was at Falls Christian, and I was like 17, and I sent him an email saying like, hey, Howie, this is so-and-so at Falls. Well, I'm thinking about getting into sports journalism. Like, this is why. It was like about 400 words, completely unnecessary length. I could have just kept it to 2 paragraphs. He like wrote me back and was like, oh, hey, Ryan, I suggest you do another career because you have like this typo and this. And I was like, oh shit, I was like devastated. But and then now I love that guy, and he's the first. It's funny because he did that to me, but now when I write something that he likes, he's the first guy to like email me or call me or be like, dude, that was awesome. I like how you did this and this. You did that perfectly, or maybe you could have done this. But the fact that same guy basically I could have just been like, well, he's right, I suck. Time to do something else. Instead I was like, nah, maybe I'll learn. You could look at it 2 ways. Screw him. Actually, that wasn't a typo. That was this. If you wouldn't need, or maybe I should pay more attention. Maybe I should, be a little more mindful of my writing.
Right.
And,
we know we all have heard these stories of Michael Jordan getting cut from a team and these actors not getting these big parts that are now the best actors and actresses. And it's kind of the same thing. It's like, if you're passionate and you're really good at it and keep with it, like it actually, you do really well. And
yeah, no, you're right. You're absolutely right.
And I like the part that you said is that, you shouldn't try to mimic anybody else's, because you have your individual, your own style. You are unique and you bring a whole different type of writing than anybody else. And so that you notice that, you're kind of like, okay, this isn't really working for me because it sounds like crap when I do it. But you found your own niche and now you're producing fantastic things.
Yeah. And it's funny, because I work with these guys, as a kid. It's weird. You're like, oh, that's so-and-so. And like, and I don't care what industry you're in. If you're like an engineer, you know who all the best engineers are, even if your best friend has no idea who the hell you're even talking about. If you're like, oh, that's so-and-so, that guy did this building. It was the best building I've ever seen. How he did this, like the very nuanced stuff. So that was kind of with newspapers or whatever. I'd be like, oh man, that's so-and-so. He wrote this and they did, and so it's kind of cool to be able to work with people who I was a kid, reading and kind of, hanging out with them and talking to them and learning from them and stuff. So, but yeah, you got to keep plugging away. I was talking to EWU's basketball coach last night. We were talking at midnight, which is like 3:00 in the morning over there. But we were just BSing, we kind of established a pretty good relationship. And he's like, Ryan, I'm not a smart guy, dude. But the thing is, I'm like crazy. I'm obsessed. I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I don't think I'm like some insane basketball mind, but I just think that I'm crazy enough, and it'll work out for you if you have a certain approach to it, and that could be anything. And keep a chip on your shoulder too, because I think if people never told me I sucked, I'd be like, because you've seen those people who
all know those people.
Wow, that guy's who are the best looking and like this. They came out of the womb like a 10 with their mind, and you know what I mean, with their mind and their body. And then when some shit goes down, it's like, what? You know what I mean? It's like they fade, and like you never hear from them ever again. So I had to kind of channel, everything that sucks. Like Ryan, I wasn't that good of a student. I was a pretty average student in college and high school, and but you remember that, and then you channel it. Even when I go to the gym, I think of things where I'm like, that son of a bitch. Then you do it other, we go to the same gym, so but anyway.
That's awesome. So I have a couple of fun questions for you.
Cool.
If you could have a billboard, let's say downtown Spokane, you could have a billboard. What would your billboard either have or say on it?
Oh man, it'd be me. And I would make it to where if it's in downtown Spokane, I wouldn't even want down Spokane in the background. I'd want Idaho in the background. It'd be like it would either have the background. It'd be like me, like I would do it TV journalism style, where I'd have the crossed arms, and it would have either the resort in the background or the Paul Bunyan statue at St. Mary's. it would have one of those two, and it would just say like something cheesy, like some tagline, like "You're his town, his paper," or your news, or something. I mean, I'm just spitballing here, but something like that.
Keep it classy, San Diego.
Yeah, keep it classy.
I love that. That was one of my favorites. I didn't know if you were going to do one of those Saturday Night Live photos that you have.
Oh yeah, no, we were joking. Me and my friend, he's now at the Seattle Times. We were both at Lewiston at the same time, and you know how that goes. You get a little bored in Lewiston, and it'd be like 1 a.m, and we're just like, we were probably high or something. I don't know. We were just, and we were just like laughing. Like we would make Lewiston Tribunes that we would do like almost like an aristocrats, like, and then he came in, but we do it with our Lewiston Tribune characters. So we pretended that Lewiston Tribune was the SNL cast.
Oh my God.
It'd be like, we'll have him play. It was just like hilarious. There were so many weird characters in the paper,
Oh yeah. Well, if anyone's listening that's not from Idaho and Lewiston is a very unique place, and there's not a lot to do. So this makes complete sense.
Yeah. So we would be like, Saturday Night Live, we'd host like, hi, I'm Ryan Collingwood. I'm hosting Saturday Night Live with musical guest Blind Melon, like something you don't even. And then so like, you know what? I'm going to make this a reality. And then my buddy made the bumper photos.
Yep.
I got like between commercials, the intro, where like we kind of went with them. It was kind of fun, but that explains that's the backstory behind that. Some weird fantasy.
Awesome. So if you could have dinner with anybody dead or alive, who would it be?
Man, who's somebody that I kind of really probably, it's gonna be weird, but Adam Corolla. Do you know Adam Corolla?
No.
Adam Corolla show. He has like probably the number one. Him and Joe Rogan have the best podcasts. But he was on Loveline with Dr. Drew. Him and Dr. Drew Loveline. This is the '90s MTV, so this is kind of nostalgia for me. But I mean, he's basically a guy. He's a comedy genius. Him and Jimmy. You remember the Man Show?
Oh yeah.
Wait, it was him. The two guys were Jimmy Kimmel and Adam Carolla.
Oh yeah.
You guys big eyebrows.
Yeah.
The guy's super funny and smart, but he's blue collar funny and smart. So the guy is like one of the wittiest, crispest guys out there, but he can fix your house with his hands and like fix your car, or like came from nothing really. And like, so the dude's obviously like a self-made guy, and he's one of the funniest guys I've ever like listened to. I listen to him every morning when I'm making breakfast or go to the gym or whatever. I listen to Adam Carolla. I know you expected me to say like Jesus Christ or Dave Chappelle, but I'm gonna keep it. It's like I don't like suspending disbelief too much. I can't do it. I can't suspend but he's a guy. I'd have like a 1% chance of ever meeting him, in my lifetime, my travels, but so that's kind of why I picked him. But he's definitely a guy I think it'd be a hilarious dinner for sure.
That's awesome. So I always ask this, and since you are a North Idaho, Spokane hybrid, what is your go-to restaurant in the Spokane or Coeur d'Alene, St. Mary's area?
Well, recently, Tab, I haven't been eating out much, but when I was eating bread and stuff and all that stuff, I love Seasons. The grilled cheese sandwich, the grilled cheese at Seasons is the number one.
Yes.
Top notch. I love that. The Capone's, I got the great pizzas over there over at Capone. My next door neighbor, Capone's restaurant. St. Mary's, Bud's Burgers was always great. You got to keep it real with Bud's. But if I want to go to Rathdrum, I go to O'Malley's. Spokane, 24 Taps has a pretty good burger, stuff like that. So, I mean, I'm kind of a hybrid, like you mentioned. So those are like the little places I go to. My favorite bar downtown Coeur d'Alene is Lakers, so I can smoke a heater there.
I can't even like think about it without.
Did you choke while just thinking about it? Yeah. But kind of more my crowd because I'm too old for Beacon. Moose, I think. I feel like I am anyway. And the Lakers is close, so that's probably my go-to bar as far as
like the Wine House, and there's all these other places like the Lakers.
But Tab, I gotta keep it real. Damn, I don't drink wine. That's the thing. Like, I drink vodka sodas like a lame-o, and then but I tried to get into the wine thing. I tried it. I tried my ass off because everyone's like, we're doing wine. I'm like, you know what? I don't like this, but I'm gonna make myself like it. I would just like, and it just was not working out. It's something you just can't force me into it. It's just not. It wasn't natural. But yeah, those are my local spots for sure.
Perfect. So I always ask this: what is your personal mission statement?
A personal mission statement, I don't think I have like one in particular, but it's to just put yourself out there because you're not. I mean, if you're just gonna be scared, I mean, if you're gonna be, worried someone's gonna say you suck or ugly or something, something, you know what I mean? Like if you thought that was gonna happen anyway, you might as well just do it and see if like there's an off chance that you're like, holy shit, so. Put yourself out there, market yourself. Don't do it in an intrusive way. Like do it, work your ass off towards something, but as you're working your ass, do it humbly. Be like, hey, I'm not very good at this, but I want to be. How can I get into it? And here's me cling on to somebody who's good.
Yes.
Kind of kiss their ass a little bit, but not too bad. Yeah. Be like, yeah, your work is great. Anyway, check out mine. It's not that good. And then keep doing that every few months. And they'll see that you're trying. They'll see the process. And that could go for any career.
Well, I think getting a mentor in any career is so important to be successful.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, because if they all shoot you down, you have no one to really like aspire to. So if you can kind of establish that rapport with somebody who's been there, done that, and they can see what you're going through and they've been there. The best guys in journalism or whatever, writing, they've all sucked at one point, or they've all had to start off at the Blackfoot, Idaho Morning News, and you know what I mean? So just do that. That's kind of that's a thing. And the thing is, now I have younger writers talking to me, like kids from Eastern or Gonzaga or Wazoo. They'll come, hey man, like, can I job shadow you? Or, you know, and I'm like, that's awesome. Cause I've been this awkward 21-year-old who wasn't very good yet and had to ask an adult what's going on. And then I try to, you know, I try to have a little more grace with them because I've been there. But yeah, I would definitely say cling onto a mentor, do it humbly, and make it known that you're progressing.
Yeah, I love that. That's perfect. So if someone is listening and they want to reach out to you, want to maybe listen to your podcast or just connect with you in some way, what is the best way to get a hold of you?
Probably just get a hold of me on Twitter. It's twitter.com/SR Collingwood. And I know my last name's long and conky and it sucks, but it's COLLINGWOOD. But the podcast I have, and you and I have talked about this before, I saw yours. That's pretty cool. How you're able to kind of reach out to locals and kind of what you're doing for you basically is you're not only showcasing the locals and whoever else you get a hold of, you know, it's like, hey, let them talk, let them kind of tell their stories. Cause I think we've all got a story. As long as we're not going to prison and doing bad stuff and we're working hard, we all have a story, you know? So you're doing that, and that's great because I've always loved that. That's what kind of makes us relevant, or even journalists, newspapers, or anything. But you're working on your communication and you're developing networking. So you're doing 2 for 1. You get a 2 for 1 in there. So, but anyway, back to my podcast thing. It's basically I've been writing, you know, for 15 years. So, and the way that we work at the Spokesman, so us and KHQ are the same company, right? So we do cross stuff, and I'm like, you know what, man, I can't be going on TV and freezing up like I'm like a third grader at the spelling bee. You know what I mean? I got to go out there and just go. I got to go, you know? So what can I do to do that to get better? And also, you know, kind of, I hate the word brand. I hate it because it's like, I think there's a connotation with it. Cause I think it's obviously accurate. It's a brand, but you see people like, this is my brand, like selfie brand. You know what I mean? Like I want to have a brand as like, okay, that's Ryan Collingwood. He's our sports guy. He's our journalist, but he can also have you on he'll talk to you and hit record, and that gives you more opportunity. So I can write whatever the hell. I can write 1,000 words about you, and it'll be, you know, 99% of what you thought it would be, but it might be 1% off. But when you talk and you say it, and I give you that platform, and there's really no question. So it's super easy. I just, boom, like you did with me today. And in the pandemic, I'm kind of, I wish I invested in Zoom, you know, stock market a few years ago, but everyone started going on Zoom. So I'm like, well, that's easy, you know, so I'll just Zoom it up, and then I'll just post the Zoom, and there you go. And then we'll get it on the iTunes. We'll get it on the website. And then the athletes I'll cover, the coaches or whoever, they'll retweet it on their stuff. And they kind of market it the most for me because they're way more important people than I am. So they market it out there. So I piggyback off there. It sounds messed up, but it's true. They'll tell you, ego makes these things work. Because like people want, like, hey, look at me. Look at who I talked to. I talked to Tabitha today. Check out Tabitha. Like, hey, I talked to Collingwood today. Therefore, check out Collingwood.
Well, and if you're not going to promote yourself, if you're not going to put yourself out there, who's going to do it for you? Like, yeah,
exactly. We're better time now, but you got to do it kind of tactfully, because you've met those people, I'm sure, in your life where just like, it's almost unbecoming. Like they're like,
Awkward.
Ryan, check me out, check me out. Like you can tell they're kind of almost using you. Like it's like, how about like talk to me about for 1 hour about me for a sec,
Yeah.
or have a, and then we'll pivot into whatever you're doing. Like, but this seems very disingenuous, and you're kind of just
Oh.
using me, and that's not going to help you.
And so when I like with nonprofits, even when I go and ask for a donation or a sponsorship, I'm not just going to cold call someone and be like, hey, can you give me 10 grand?
Yeah, you got to like, yeah.
I have to build that relationship over phone calls and emails. And then I say, hey, are you interested in being a sponsor at any of these calls? Like it just, you don't just go in there and be like, give me all the things and help me promote myself. You got to build that relationship with you, me, your coaches, whatever. You have to build that to get anything from it.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. That's kind of another word of advice I'd give, because you can go in a little too cold and a little too self-important, and it just doesn't work. And I think a lot of kids now are, I sound like maybe this is me getting old, but it says, well, I am. But the thing is, like, when they're not out in the world as much as we were. You and I were like, we were playing video games, but we were also playing sports. We had a good, the 90s and the early 2000s were a good mixture of tech and physical stuff. We were camping.
The greatest generation. Let's just.
Yeah, because we had both. We valued both.
Yep.
Now it's just kind of pivoted the other way, where you're streaming and Twitch and all that crap. Guys, and crap, but you know what I mean? Like it's but what that does, it makes you, it kind of stunts you socially a little bit. It stunts how you know, your social aptitude takes a dive when you're not out there. Your social cues are off.
Yeah.
You see a lot of kids, I'm seeing them all the time, their social cues are so off. I'm just like, whoa, like how do you even like navigate the world? So but yeah, like back to that, just keep plugging away. Perfect. Keep putting yourself out there. And if you're a good enough guy, people recognize, are good enough women, it will work out. It might not work out the first 5 years or 3 years or whatever, but somebody will notice. I mean, you have to be a real dick for somebody, for you to be talented and working hard and to not get, at least be put in a position to where you can take over. Because it's all about being put in that position. It's like, you've heard all these athletes on the documentaries. It's like, it's not about actually what you did that came to you. It's a matter of like, well, now I'm in this position. Now it's up to me. Yep. It's like this NCAA tournament. Okay. When I was 22, I wanted to be in a position where I was covering the NCAA tournament, finding all the stories, doing the TV shows, doing the podcasts, well, here it is, Ryan. Like, so it's up to you to make it worth its shit.
Yep, exactly. That's a great point. So my last question is, so we've all been going through this pandemic in one way or another. It's been a crazy 2020, and people are dealing with things financially, physically, emotionally. Do you have one piece of advice, like one piece of positive advice as we go into our day to give to all the listeners?
As far as pandemic?
As anything is like, hey, I'm struggling. What is something positive that I can kind of hold on to, or your little nugget, little piece of advice, positivity?
Perspective. There's going to be days that suck, and there's going to be things that rattle you, and it could be your job. It could be your ex-girlfriend or something. Things are going to get you. Yeah. But realize if you're awake and you're healthy and your family is doing fine, and that's not always the case. So if perspective that you can get up and do the things, you're up, you're conscious, you're in control for the most part of that day. Some things are out of your control, but if you can streamline the things that you can control, and if it gets to a point where you're so depressed, and I'm talking about, it's like I'm doing a podcast next week where we talk mental health and how you could approach things. And I write things down a lot. So even on my worst days where I'm like, God damn it, I'll write that. I'll write things. This was good. 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 And what was objectively bad? I mean, some people think like getting cut in traffic was a bad day because they're such pansies. You know what I mean? They can't handle like any sort of slight at all. Like that ruined their day. This guy didn't compliment their hair. Like that's not what I mean. I mean, like, right, the bad things, like, okay, this guy's not doing too well. My friend's not doing too well with his health, or family members going through some struggles, or I have an extra bill I didn't expect, or something. Just get to that point. Just write things down. I can't stress that enough. Write it down. It sounds corny, cliche, but just do it. When you see it there, you're like, okay, now that I see it, I've absorbed it. Perspective's there, and then just go to the next thing. Go to the next thing. Go to the next thing. And that's probably my biggest piece of advice that's helped me personally. It's more anecdotal, but that's kind of what's helped me the most, for sure.
Perfect. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for giving me your time.
Thanks, Tabitha. Appreciate you having me on, and we'll be seeing you around.
Thanks for listening to Keeping Tabs. I'm Tabitha Kroc, and every Monday I release a podcast about different community members here in North Idaho. And then we end the weeks on Fridays with a podcast about the things I'm passionate about: outdoors, adventures, sports, the van life, and even current events. So if you like what you heard, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube, Spotify, or iTunes. Thank you again. Now go be kind and do something great.